nice. It's so peaceful.
Is it peaceful?
It is peaceful. Sometimes
We're in
it's
the
stressful.
city. We're in New York. Look at that.
Brian, what brings you peace? Because when I looked at your blood, it didn't look very peaceful.
You know, I really like thinking about going back to Portugal. Honest to God, that's the one thing.
You've never wanted to be here. Let's be honest.
100%.
Oh, jeez, you didn't fight it. I've talked to people. I've had patients. They're like, I don't want to be in this country, which is hard because you are here. And
Yes.
Canada's great for a lot of things, from what I remember.
It is good. It is good for a lot of things. But what I find is my joy really comes back from my past memories of being in Portugal. And so even now when I was there, even with Eric and Eloisa, we were walking along the beach and I'm like, oh, I remember that rock. Like a rock, because it's the beach, right? So I'm like, I remember that. And I was telling them a story about how there was an extension of one of the, it's called a rocha, like, you know, it's the rock, but there's an extension of the rock that used to be able to walk in or from one beach to the other at low tide. And when high tide came up, you had to walk all the way around. Well, they had to break it. They had to destroy it because there were chunks of rock that were falling down. So for safety issues, they had to do that. And I'm like, I remember as a kid, you know, that was one thing. But my joy is there, really, especially small country, like small town. Oh, my parents.
So charming.
My parents' place, like my mom's place, sun rising up over the mountains. Like, I mean, just peaceful. Roosters. It's just, there's no noise whatsoever until the town actually starts to wake up. Then you get like everybody in their cars and their little motorcycles and everything, disturbing my peace.
The noise.
I just want to zoom in on you guys a little bit more.
Good thing I shaved.
You're making me want to grow up with the podcasting. This is beautiful.
What do you mean? You mean like
The tech,
up
like-
your game?
Well, I need space, but it's funny. It's been in my mind. I'm like, oh, look what I manifested. A beautiful template of an example of someone who's, how do you, like this? Yeah. Did you take a course?
Yeah, it's called Do 20 Crummy Podcasts and then learn what not to do again. YouTube is actually wonderful for troubleshooting, figuring out what's good gear that's not going to break the bank. And you know what? People don't want to listen to something that sounds crummy, even if it's articulated well and is good information. If it's no one wants it. If someone is watching something and it looks not very aesthetic, they're going to ignore it. So, I mean, I think that is part of like what we do is like we have to cater to the senses in order to penetrate deeper into what they like the uncompensated truth. Because everyone's like, okay, give me something pretty and that smells good. And then I give them a tincture that tastes like, I don't know, Brian, come up with something that tastes bad. Well, Brian's coming up with that.
There's so many different things out there. I don't know.
That was your cue to make a silly joke. We'll work on our timing.
Yeah.
But Brian's working so hard, and he gets so disappointed when he comes in, and I'm like, Brian, I've seen better blood on a dead cat.
Oh my
That's
gosh.
harsh. Dude, that's harsh.
Oh my gosh.
This might be my last visit.
No, why? We're just becoming friends.
Aw.
Dead cat.
I mean, I'm just saying for comparison's
I know, I'm
sake.
sure. Yeah, it's all good.
Brian's
Okay.
working really hard. So what do you think, like, right now, do you feel like your diet is like you're just going on all cylinders, it's going well for you, you got a routine, you're feeling good, you're avoiding junk and crummy things that were making you feel off?
The one thing about living up north is I don't have access to all the poor nutritional food that is down here in the city.
Yeah.
So it's not like I can just be like, oh, I'm going to go to the corner store and grab a bag of potato chips. Can't get that up north, right? A lot of the stuff that I do eat is a lot cleaner. Like, you know, the eggs that I get, the lady on the side of the road, you know, she sells them. I mean, so they're all organic. The beef that I get is from a farmer up there. And it's like, you know, well, you know, we're going to get beef, and you order like half a cow at a time, and it's like, which one is it going to be? And he's pointing into his fields like, oh, it's going to be that one right there. So the meat's good, the lamb is phenomenal, I get that fresh too. So like the quality of food is better, right? Obviously when it comes to the produce this time of the year, the farmers markets, they shut down, so you have to go to your local grocery store and pick up your fruits and your vegetables. And
how many people don't think about this stuff? People don't, they think first of all, they just DoorDash or Uber or something to them. If they're going to buy produce, it's just like whatever is there. And half the time they don't even bother with the good stuff, the healthy stuff. It's whatever is appealing. And so, you were talking earlier about fond memories. So, I guess what I want to highlight is you kind of have to know what's your makeup? What do you like? What do you want? You want to be healthy. So you want to find places that actually have good meat, good produce. You want to do things. You want to be active. You want to be in an environment that is hospitable to well-being. Most of us live in cities. Most of us deal with traffic. Most of us tolerate, whether it's colleagues that are aggravating or bosses or something in their life that's just toxic, where I feel like you found a way to kind of pull yourself out of this toxic world, and you're kind of not living amongst us. You ever feel like that?
Yes, it's less toxic where I am. There's less of that, right? I don't deal with the stress. When I gotta go from point A to point B, there's no traffic. My biggest traffic is deers crossing the road or turkeys crossing the road. Those are my biggest traffics, but that's the truth, right? So I don't have the toxicity that the city.
It's real. You know what I equate it with? You remember the original Ghostbusters?
I do.
No, actually, you know what? It's probably part 2. It wasn't as good, but there was this toxic slime underneath the city, and everyone just felt everyone's irritable and hating each other, and they realized it was just this toxic stuff underneath us. Yeah. So I guess
there is something about when I drive down into the city, I do feel it. I do feel more anxious.
Oh yeah,
100%. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know how you do it, especially when you're used to it up there. Diane, what do you say? Are you hearing? You're just.
I'm laughing.
But I think it's kind of evolving into I had an itinerary for what I wanted to talk about, and we'll get to it. But what do you feel about what I'm saying? Do you feel like there's this toxic load that we can't escape unless we physically remove ourselves?
Well, it's the new reality. We live in cities. I'm hardcore downtown, High Park, and you name it. I'm in the thick of it all. And the truth is that I like a lifestyle of it. There's a part of me that enjoys it. So what do we do?
I don't know. I was actually gonna talk to you like I talked to Brian, but I don't think that's good. I'm I wouldn't tolerate it. I'd just leave. Because I don't go south of Highway 7.
I would say this: when my kids were younger, living in the city suited the lifestyle needs that I needed to support my kids with what they wanted to do activity-wise. Now that they're out of the house, being in the city it wasn't providing me the energy that I needed. So up north.
Yeah. I think I just don't like people, which is a horrible thing to say. I don't like the bad part of people. I don't like the road rage. That's the one thing, because I'll look at someone's blood on the microscope and I'll be like, do you have road rage? And if they are by themselves, they say no. But if they're there with their spouse, the spouse will start laughing because they probably just were swearing all in the parking lot. I feel like we're just too much in too close vicinity. I feel like we need to spread out. It's an obstacle. I actually think that people are better when they're further away. I think there's, it's almost like, when a cell divides, it gets so big to the point where it's almost too big and it's uncomfortable that it just splits. I think we're getting to that point in our society that we need to split. Like we just need, like have half the people move 2 hours away. Cool.
That's how I am. 2 hours.
Well, I mean, you're the pioneer.
No, there are people doing it before I did. There were people doing it before I did. I just followed a good example, like a lot of other things I do in my life.
Yes.
Right. So if it's working for that person, I'm going to try it.
Mm-hmm.
Not that everything suits everybody equally. Like, you know, you can't give, for example, if you were to say to me, Brian, you need to take A, B, and C for your health, you can't say to Diane, you're going to take exactly the same A, B, and C, you know, 2 different makeups.
Sure.
Right. 2 different genetics. Right. So what works for me isn't going to work for her. Right. So I do follow some things that people do, and it's like, yeah, it works. And there's some things I'm like, it just won't work. Right.
You have a practical sense. Like you actually like recognize when it's like someone's telling you something, and if you respect them and it jives with you, you'll do it. It's surprising that a lot of people, I did a podcast the other day. I'm like, so many people they absorb all this information. They want to do everything concurrently. They get overwhelmed and they give up immediately. So I'm like, why don't you actually like think about what you want to do? A lot of people are completely unaware of their agenda or their motivations. I'll ask them like, why are you coming in? And they'll be like, well, I wrote it on the review of systems. I got like this, I got pain here and there. I'm like, sure. I mean, you can go to your doctor and get pain medication, but like, there's all these other things, like you're overweight and you got cholesterol, you got this and this and that. You didn't really highlight those. Do you not see how all of that is probably like the tip of the iceberg symptom is your pain, but like you have all this other stuff underneath that's pulling you away from a state of health. How are you not like connecting the two? I feel like I end up kind of like redirecting someone's focus because they're coming in for like, I want to lose weight. And it's like, but you also have like arthritis and inflammation. You're not active and all these other things that are like, that's what caused the weight gain. But instead of like, well, just give me a pill to lose weight, I'm like, we got to like fix everything underneath. And they kind of like, it takes them a minute to be like, but you're giving me so much more work. I'm like, this was never going to be easy if we want to do it right. Because a lot of people, they kind of like want the route of least resistance. And I get that. I mean, most people are always looking. That's an innate quality.
I've heard Diane tell that kind of story all the time where she's had clients and just trying to get them to do something. It's like they never just follow exactly the protocol that you gave them, right? You know, it was always like, you know, like pulling teeth, trying to get someone to do it exactly for their own health.
Yeah.
I just look at it from, if I spend X amount of dollars on a vehicle so then it can run, you know, change the oil, do the tires, do all that stuff, and I'm always looking for, I'm gonna buy these brake pads because they happen to be a little bit better quality, so they'll last a little bit longer. I try to do the same for myself. Not that I'm perfect with it, but I try to do that. You know,
I feel like people don't like discipline. They either don't like being told what to do. I've had people literally say like, I don't like when someone tells me what to do. I'm like, I'm very confused about what my role is in this. I'm like, you asked me something, I gave you my opinion. They're like, don't tell me what to do. I'm like, this is like a childhood trauma coming out? Most of the time I feel like that's what's end up happening.
I'm just having fun seeing the back and forth happening here right now.
Normally I'm on the other side of this. Normally it's like I'm listening to Diane like on her morning calls, and it's her and somebody else, like her and Dr. Paul, just going back and forth, and I'm sitting there as like, oh,
the observer.
The observer.
Hey, Diane's kind of like, Brian, where'd you find this guy?
No, I'm actually, it's fascinating to me because it's, as a practitioner, I've learned to surrender. And I've learned that if I can just find a space that allows the person to feel like it's okay, and provide a space where they feel safe and they can let go and be themselves, and we can go deeper into what it is that they really want. What is your goal? You want to feel good about yourself. Got it. Does that mean a psychological, I'm too overweight, I don't like what I see in the mirror, or my back hurts and I literally can't go up and down the stairs and it's affecting my quality of life?
Do you think this is a gender thing?
Possibly.
That's what I was thinking.
Possibly.
I'm like, guys are like, well, why don't you just do it? This is the answer. What do you mean? Why are you crying?
Meanwhile, I'm like, tears are good. We're getting somewhere.
Well, all my patients cry. I'm just used to it.
Maybe you make them cry, Jason.
Some of them have said that. That's
but the
when
truth is hard. The truth is hard.
So I usually say, like, listen, I'm trying not to be Dr. Phil right now. I used to go down that rabbit hole a lot. And I've had patients stay for 3 hours. I feel like this is therapy for both of us now. Why are we both crying? And then it's like, then they don't come back. Or it didn't yield a result or a change. So sometimes I'll kind of like pull myself out of like a situation I see like is evolving into like a lot of like hurt. I'm like, I have a psychotherapist. And like, most people are now amenable to that. 5-10 years ago, saying that, it was like almost like I'm insulting you. I'm like,
yeah.
What do you know? Move past. This is not the 70s. Let's go. Let's become a little more current with our concept of mental health. You need to talk to somebody. Like, what's wrong with that? I'm a naturopath. People talk to me about stuff. People tell me crazy things.
I have.
No, that was the setup. But no, like, I mean, crazy things like I'm like, wow, like you haven't told anybody that. Yeah. And I'm like, okay, I'm not equipped, so let me refer you to someone that will. But I think I'm more interested in, I think the average person that just, they've become lazy, for lack of better phrasing. Like they just, like they're resigned to things. I had one person, I think they just had turned 30 and they said, well, I guess I'm just getting old. I'm like,
wow.
Why are you saying that? Like, I have 60-year-olds that they're like, no, I'm not ready. I'm just getting good. I'm just hitting my prime.
Nice.
Like, good for you. It's not realistic, but it's at least the mentality's there. But 30, you ready to give up? No. I think those are people that were never fit at one point, or they were really fit and it was just, maybe they were just too dedicated to it, too like obsessed with it. Because it's got to be something that you can replicate and maintain. It's not something that you can go all in, sprint through it, and then you're going to burn out eventually. That's what I presume.
Everything has a season to it.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of overload with what, with media, social media. There's so much, do this, and people like, their attention span has shortened so much. When, like you can't watch a video that's more than 10 or 15 seconds long. People just swipe. So what does it come down to? It's like, oh, working out. Well, this isn't working out for me. Swipe. And they go into something else, right? So I've been fortunate enough where I've connected, with Diane and with certain people where they're like, you can do this. And it's like, oh, this is really easy. Like breathing exercises, right? Or like cold baths or like the saunas and all that stuff. That stuff is easy, right? It's just understanding that the benefit for it is not going to show itself in 10 to 15 seconds. It's going to be like 10 to 15 weeks. And if you can hold out, right, then you start seeing the benefits to it.
No, I think that's a good point, is because we do live in a world of instant gratification. How do you commit yourself to something that results come weeks from now?
You know about the marshmallow test?
Oh, yes.
You know that one?
No, you better tell me.
Marshmallow test, they have two kids, or they have a kid, and it's like, I can give you one marshmallow now, or if you wait 15 minutes, you can get two. And so they'll see if the kid will take the one or wait the 15 minutes. And the one that waits the 15 minutes, they've seen over time that they excel more because they're not looking for instant gratification. They realize if they put in the time and the effort, they'll get double.
Interesting.
Right, so they've done that with kids in the past. It'd be interesting to do that with adults now.
Right.
Yeah. Do you want the $100 now, or do you want to wait?
Right.
And you can get 1,000. Right. A lot of people will just jump on that 100 because I'll just take it right now because I don't want to wait to get that 1,000.
Well, I mean, I also think that we live. I mean, I value the point, but I'm thinking about like a realistic example. How often have you been offered something and it's like, if I don't take it right now, they might say they're going to offer it down the road, but who's to say that they're going to still be open for business? That offer might be gone. I think we do live in a world that like there is some cynicism and like, yeah, you're saying that, but are you going to? Because some people have been burned. Like if someone says, I'll give you $100 now, but like 3 months from now, I'll give you 1,000. I'll be like, I don't know you. I'll take the 100. So not to step on your marshmallows.
No, I'm just
with kids. I think there is a trust thing
even with
versus
adults, because there's a mentor of mine, Dr. Rakowski, who has put out in a statement, it's like, and it's from somebody else, but it's like, why are you doing this right now? Why not? Because the longer that you wait to do something, the greater the chance, right, that you won't take the opportunity, right? So in this example, it's actually backwards. Like if you don't do it now, you're going to miss out on. Mm-hmm. So you have to be instantly gratified. So if you do this, but it's for self, sure. Right? So if you do this now, if you take advantage of this opportunity now, mm-hmm. tenfold, 100-fold, 1,000-fold later on.
Yeah, I like that better. I feel like that's different. I feel like you're getting some benefit now, but keep doing it. And you're going to see more, and it's exponential.
But it's not someone giving it to you.
You're earning it.
Right? You're earning it.
Yeah.
See, there's the difference. You're earning it as opposed to it just being given to you.
So that's a way to motivate people. Because I feel like that's what is a big chunk. It's like, how do you encourage someone to do something on their own? Because take a horse to water, all that stuff. But like, how do you convince someone? It's like, yeah, you know what? I am going to do that. And I think that maybe to like, use science, use studies, use examples, use peers, then be like, look, so-and-so just started and they're already doing great. Brian has just been working on his health. I mean, you've been always working, but like really committing in the last couple months. Each month you come in, your numbers are better. That's feedback. That's motivation. And like we're looking for progress in different areas. When a person comes in for the first time, they're like, I don't know what I need. We'll do your body composition. I look at your blood. You see your blood. See how it looks right now? In a month from now, all these little snowflakes are going to be gone. All these clumped cells are all going to be nice, blowing up balloons and floating around on their own. Now you know what to look forward to. And what does that translate into how you feel? Your brain fog is gone. You lose some weight. You feel like you're more yourself. You turn back, the dial. And now people have like context. Because like I like using things that are visual to take a patient through, like, you feel something. Feeling is somewhat undefined. Like, you do your best to describe it. Sometimes people come in with blood work, but more often than not, their blood work looks fine. If the blood work was really bad, they wouldn't be coming in to see me anyways. But they're not feeling good, but there's an incongruence with what their results are. So I actually make them do things that are like, this is the state that I'm in right now. These are objective numbers or a visualization of things. Explaining it to them, showing them how it can be better, and then giving them like subtle things. Like I tell people, most of your diet is already 85% there. Your practice, this is not recreating the wheel for you, but like instead of having 3 pieces of toast for breakfast, maybe have one. Maybe have one every other day. Have more protein. Now we're just kind of like taking what you already do and just leaning from one foot onto the other. I think that's a good way. Like, and picking up from what you were saying is like showing people the today, the next week, the next month, and the next year where you'll be, because you're getting progress throughout the way, along the way. And people will ask me, how long will I take before I feel better? I feel better tomorrow, but you'll feel great in 3 weeks. You'll feel fantastic in 2 months, but it's not going to happen tomorrow overnight by doing nothing, right? So thanks, Brian.
Thanks, Jason. It's those small measurables.
Yeah.
And I found in practice too that when people came in and they had the small little measurables that showed they were improving, then they kept the work. And that was part of my big love with the BIA in my case, that they were able to come back and see body composition changing, even though maybe that week they didn't see it in the mirror. Mm-hmm. And knowing that, okay, they're getting better, so it just keeps them going. So those small wins are nice when you can measure them and they can see with their own eyes. Yeah. And you do that here.
Yeah, and it's true. The scale isn't always forgiving, and it may not be a good reflection initially what's going on. And there is that blind faith. It's like, okay, I know I'm doing good things. I'm getting good advice. I'm going in the right direction. I'm trusting that this is working for me. And it's like, you're almost there. And a lot of times people, I feel like they turn away a couple steps away from the finish line because they don't see it. They don't see that they are almost there. They don't see the end of the tunnel. And it's like, oh, I'm going to go back to what I'm used to. And you going back to what you're used to is usually the stuff that put you back there in the first place. Yeah. Okay. Now what?
Well, I know you had questions that you had put together.
Yeah, let's go into those.
So I figured if that's some meat.
Yes, more meat.
That you want to, have conversation on.
Let's do it. We all have weaknesses. We all have shortcomings. Some of us are willing to acknowledge them more than others. What's a constructive way to turn them into strengths?
You can answer that.
Well, that's a weakness right there.
Right there.
Pass the buck.
Yeah.
Good job, Brian.
That's one option.
It's a strength, actually. I'm passing it over to someone who
Handing the baton.
has shown strength. Like, since I've met her, has shown, like, I've seen a lot of strength in her from the day that I met her to how she would communicate with people to how she communicates now.
Well, why don't you describe Diane? Describe her strengths.
Aww.
Describe her strengths?
Yes.
She's helpful. She really genuinely enjoys helping people. Like, really enjoys helping people. She goes out of her way. Like, she traveled 2 hours to come up to Bob Cajun to help out a lady with 2 kids. Did a BIA on them. Just said, listen, this is what we can do. It takes a lot for someone to travel 2 hours, just to go see somebody to help them out, and that person now is doing better in their lives, right? The kids are doing better. This is the young gentleman I told you that autistic, where, like, there's no way, like, when I first met him, I would ever take him for a motorcycle ride. And now that he's actually able to communicate, he's a lot calmer. He's able to vocalize what he wants, right? And that's, that was with Diane's help. Obviously, I put my input into it as well. I give him, you have to do this, because if you don't do it, then I'm not going to come and give you the motorcycle ride. So, like, I gave him a task, very simple, very simple task, and he was able to do it. And, he's shown progression where I'm like, okay, now I got to reward the effort, all right? What else can I say about Diane? She's definitely, like, she's a believer of the calendar, like making sure everything is scheduled. Like, it's like I'm going to schedule this date so that I make sure my time is free for this event, right? And then she's constantly pre-planning and then letting other people know, say, hey, I'm doing this. I'm doing it for my own good, but if you do it as well, it could benefit you. You just have to put in the effort and see if it works for you. So she's thinking about others all the time.
Thank you, Brian. What a way to put him on the spot.
Well, if he's a friend, he should be able to rhyme it off like that, which he did. You did good.
That's and she's she's very busy.
I can tell.
She's very busy.
I don't take this time lightly.
Yeah, nor do I.
Nor do I.
Yeah.
We're all so congratulatory.
So sweet.
But so, like, let's acknowledge our own weaknesses. We should shout them out. Brian, you go first. I'll pass the baton.
Jason's putting Brian on the spot all the time.
All the time. I don't know why.
You're my Ed McMahon. No one knows who Ed McMahon is. Do you know?
I know who Ed McMahon. The Tonight Show.
Yeah, you should know.
What a weakness, man. I
do care too much.
You know what? I do care. I do care to the point that it worries me about what other people may be thinking if I'm putting in the effort or not into caring.
You worry that people don't think you care enough.
No, just what they're thinking. Not that they don't think that I care enough. Who knows what runs through people's heads? I don't even know what runs through my head sometimes. I'm supposed to know what other people are thinking? Come on. I mean, truly, that is a weakness for me because it occupies my brain. So occupy my thought process, worrying about
which is interesting because you move so far away and you still worry about what other people think. Can't even see them.
True. That's just
I'm nosy. That's a weakness.
You're what?
I'm nosy.
I couldn't tell.
I'm hypercritical.
Couldn't tell.
Yeah.
No,
I come off as lazy or indifferent.
Yeah. I think that what I consider to be a strength.
Is that what we're asking?
For me?
I thought I asked
No, you asked about weaknesses.
Weaknesses.
Okay, yeah.
But I said
But
what
you want to
I
go back to
consider-
strengths. Okay.
What I consider to be a strength for myself,
Ah.
I think other people think is, I wouldn't want to say a weakness, but like it,
Annoying quality?
Annoying quality.
Yeah.
Right.
Like what?
Oh man, I'm a stickler on like yes or no questions. Have you done A, B, or C? I'm expecting a yes or a no. When people start going into
So you're rude when someone starts explaining themselves.
Well, I don't like to think it is rude. I
didn't ask you that. I just said it's just yes or no.
It's
What are you,
just yes or
Columbo?
no, yeah. For me, I just need the answer. I just need the answers, then I can get on to the next problem. It's the problem-solving thing for me, which then becomes a weakness because I'm just.
You ever set someone up when you ask a question, but you're really thinking 3 questions down, and so just answer this one because I'm almost hooking you in.
All the time.
That's what you do. That's why you get annoyed. Because someone already knows, like, if I just say yes, he's going to think that I did it. I'm like, well, let me tell you, because...
I'm guilty of that.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, because you're in a uniform guy. That's what uniforms do.
It's a leader role, right? He's got to...
Looking for trouble.
Or...
No, looking to get out of trouble.
That's what I was going to say. It falls on you in that moment.
Yeah.
Everyone's looking for the guidance.
It's the field that I work in.
That's what I mean.
It's the field that I work in both professions, right? For example, when I'm towing an airplane and you're going across runways and taxiways, it's very I got to get from, you call the towers, I got to go from point A to point B. They give you a route, you have to read it back exactly the same way. There is no how about if I go this way instead?
It's black and white.
It's very black and white. And, 30 plus years in that industry, black and white, it's hard not to bring that into a personal lifestyle.
What's the consequence of that, though?
You're not at work today. It's like that's a lot of.
Have you had to learn how to shut that off?
Yeah.
How do you do that?
Someone telling me I'm not at work today, and I'm like, oh man, I'm not at work. Okay, I got to try to shut this off, right? But you know what? It has it has saved me a lot of times because I'm very regimented. For example, when I'm driving, nighttime, Francesca has said, how did you see that deer? And I'm like, what was I paying attention? I'm very don't talk to me when I'm driving. If I choose to have a conversation with you, that's because I feel the environment is allowing me now to have a conversation.
Do they sense that if you're quiet that you're upset?
They think I'm upset.
Yes.
They think I'm upset, but
that's
I'm not.
Cue.
But I'm not.
Silence is a sign of anger.
Yeah.
But I'm just silence just means
Is
it's perceived as if you're driving and it's like, no, you're not talking to me. What did I do? I'm like, nothing. Just focused on driving. Driving to us, I think, is it might as well be a fighter jet. But we're not going to have a conversation of what did you think about this? You're paying attention. Like you said, deer. You are actively thinking about threats. Whereas
100%.
other people, when they drive, they're playing with this, and they're thinking about where they're going. The drive is almost like a automatic. We're almost there. Don't have to think about it. But I think there's that interpersonal kind of
30 years or 30 plus years of riding motorcycle. When you're going up north, you know what I mean? There's no radios, right? I do have one now, but in the past, the bikes that I had never had a radio. You know what I mean? And
I'd be scared to listen to anything riding a bike. I feel like even if I'm parking, I turn off the radio.
That's an odd one because I've seen people do that where they turn down the volume where they're like, oh, I gotta make a turn on a street, and they turn down the volume to the radio.
It's a distraction.
It is a distraction.
It's actually kind of if I screw this up, I'm blaming someone. Just turn up. If someone's talking and I hit a curb, I'm like, shut up. You see what you did?
Yeah. But that's in riding a motorcycle, 2 hours of going back and forth up north, I have no distractions. So I'm constantly hyper-focused on what's going on around me so I don't either one get cut off by a car, get hit by a deer, birds crossing the road, then they just swoop across, right? And that's the weirdest thing with birds because they just fly right at head level. they have the ability to like avoid it all, but they for some reason they love to come right at head level. Sometimes I think it's just them playing chicken. Yeah.
Oh,
Yes, it's the weirdest thing. It really is. Yeah. So
Interesting. So, I mean, in a roundabout way, we talked about weaknesses. Weaknesses could be like just these character flaws that maybe like they help us excel in our career, but they don't work with family or our loved ones, because we can't be the same person all the time. I guess it kind of makes sense, but sometimes it's difficult, especially if you're always in like work mode. Like your brain is just wired that way. So is there ways that like some of this stuff has translated into success though? I'd imagine.
always.
How so?
It just depends if you see it as a gift. So, because your weakness can be a gift. If you see it that way and you can apply it that way. Mm-hmm. And I'll give you an example. One of my weaknesses growing up was I was always afraid of my father. So I was always very careful in a room. And I would feel a room out first before I was able to get comfortable in it. Mm-hmm. But in my profession, once I started to acknowledge and learn where that came from, I realized how it was a strength, because I can come into a room and adapt to the personality, to the patient, to the client, to the team, and help them feel comfortable as I'm getting comfortable, and recognize that I hold space for them, not just coming in and commanding all the time. So that allows for a deeper connection and more authenticity, which helps for team building. But I only started using that when I started to learn where that came from, what it was about. So it's a self-discovery.
Yeah.
And I think the more you know about yourself, the more you can actually learn to thrive in those weaknesses.
Do you find that most relationships are not a 50-50, but it's very much like either I'm taking up the excess space or I'm allowing the other person to?
Yeah, I think you take turns in the driver's seat.
With the same person, they take turns?
You
could.
You could.
How often do people give up that space?
Well,
You ever share one of those, what's the thing, the armrests on a plane?
Oh. That's why I like flying first class.
Oh, big spender.
No.
Wow.
No, I said that's why I like to fly first class. Doesn't mean I do it all the time.
But you don't do it all the time, but you
do
it. You've done it frequently enough. Jeez, why don't you just sit in the pilot's lap?
No. Actually.
It's a funny story.
Funny story.
Of course.
Got tons of them. Y2K. So 1999 to 2000. Obviously had a really great party. But I wanted to go see my grandfather, who was celebrating his 90th birthday, January 2nd. So I'm flying from Toronto to Newark to Lisbon. Do the flight to Newark. There was like a 9-hour wait between the two flights. But I didn't want, not knowing how the flights are going to be. Everyone worried about Y2K, maybe canceling, all that stuff. I sleep in the airport, right at the gate, have my arms around my suitcase or my carry-on bag. And I wake up a couple hours later, and sure enough, the boarding lounge is lit up, saying that the flight for Lisbon is going to be leaving at such and such a time. And I'm the only one in the lounge. I'm like, oh my God, I missed boarding. So I go up to the front, and I ask the gate agent, I'm like, yeah, are you going to start boarding? Have you boarded? She goes, just have a seat. We'll be calling out people soon. And I'm like, I look around, there's like no one in the lounge. And then all of a sudden I'm sitting there, and she's like, calling Mr. Figueroa. So I stand up and I go, she goes, we've upgraded you to first class.
Nice.
And I'm like, have you loaded everyone? She goes, you're the only one on the plane. I'm like, what? She goes, yeah, no one else is flying today. But because it's a scheduled flight, they have to go to Portugal to pick up the people coming back. Oh. So I had the whole plane to myself. This is pre 9/11. So I was in the flight deck for takeoff. I was in the flight deck for landing, right? I was serving the flight attendants sometimes. I was just like, hey, I'm going to go and get myself a drink. Do you want one? Because we all just sat down and enjoyed the flight. I mean, they didn't have to do any work.
Nice.
So,
can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Did you tell them about the time you saved that guy from drowning on the flight?
Drowning on the flight?
No.
That's a whole different.
No.
Oh, telling the story of drowning.
Yeah, you
no, I never did.
You didn't tell.
I did not.
I thought you had 8-hour flight. You would have all your stories.
Well, it's an overnight flight too. Right, so a lot of people
sound like you
slept.
Night.
Yeah.
You would keep them up.
Well, a lot of them slept. I took advantage of watching the movies, right? Because
So you flew on Y2K for the context, because maybe some people that weren't born yet, we thought the world was going to end at Y2K at midnight on going to 2000.
Oh.
That was amazing. I think some people just like when they did the countdown, like, and they got to 0,
They got scared.
they're like, and then some jerk turned off all the lights, turned off the power in the house. No, it happened because we thought because the computers were going to shut down.
Well, a lot of the digital stuff would just go to, because the way the numbering on the digital, like a digital watch, it would only go to 1999. It couldn't physically put a 2 because it only had the line for the 1, right? So the computer didn't know. So everyone was like freaking out. Planes are going to fall out of the sky.
So you
boats are going to sink. Trains are just going to stop.
But it didn't.
I took advantage of it.
Yeah, you did. Opportunist. Very nice. I think it's interesting to maybe like what I felt like in this conversation is that we highlighted some interesting areas of like there's things that are black and white, and then there's relationships that are like they kind of, you have to conform to where the person's at, and depending on if you're in a therapeutic relationship or even if it's a personal relationship, it's not always what you want. It's not just how you are. There's an ability to adapt to that person's needs in that moment. So if it's a therapeutic relationship, I feel like it's good for you to like actually know what this person needs and not just dictate to them. It's like, well, this is what you're going to do despite what you want or how you feel about it. Because I can give people 20 supplements and they're going to be like, I can't swallow pills. I'm like, well, you're going to have to figure it out. That's not me listening to them. That's just me doing what I think is right, which doesn't help them because I'm here to help them, I guess, right?
I guess.
But you know what? Then it's like a double-edged sword, because I feel like there's some people that have come in and like, listen, I'm not doing this, but I'm also not doing this, and this. And I've done this before and it didn't work. I'm like, well, you just cut off 95% of my opportunity here to help you. How much of this is you just wanting to be a control freak? Maybe you don't actually perceive yourself like you should. Sometimes you do need like a mirror, and like you ever look in a mirror and you look ugly and you be like, oh, I do look like that today. Hopefully tomorrow I'll look better.
So what do you do with those people?
I do try to meet them sort of halfway. I'll be like, listen, I get what you're saying. I feel like the things that you've tried, they might have failed, but it wasn't because they were the wrong things. You can do something good or an intervention and it didn't work. But did you do all the points of it? How long did you do it for? Did you have other things kind of working in the background? You need to kind of see and flesh out the whole situation. So it's not like, because a lot of people are just defeatists. They come in like, supplements don't work on me, vitamins don't work, diet doesn't work, exercise doesn't work. It's like, are you not human? Nothing works for you. Food doesn't work. Air doesn't work for you. Like at some point, you're just kind of like saying, I don't want what's out there. I'm a freak. Nothing can help me. I'm like, I don't believe that's true. Everyone's different. And there's certain people that act or they respond paradoxically. It's like, I give you magnesium, you get hyper. Most people take magnesium, they relax. But you're in that 2% that it does something different to your chemistry. So either we can learn about it and figure it out and use that info to your good, or we have to look somewhere else. But there is a solution if you're willing to receive it. Some people, they're just like, and I feel like when people are really, really hurt, nothing works. But there's that to me is like a call out to childhood. Kids crying, they wanted something. You find it, you give it to them. They're still crying. Now they're crying about something else. Give them something else. They're crying about that too. I'm like, you just want to cry right now. So there is a nuance. I feel like talking to a patient, I can't just be like, you're acting like a child. I can think of it in the back of my mind, but I can't say it. Not you, Brian. You're very mature.
Just making sure, because you looked at me there for a split
second. Well, you are in the room.
What about the ones that have said, I've seen so many practitioners, and I'm sure you see that. I've tried it. I've done the supplement. I've done the cookie cutter. Supplements don't work. Diets don't work. You know, I've gone to the best of the best of the best.
Yes.
I've dropped so much money everywhere. I've done every tincture, and no one can figure this out.
That sounds like a lot of my patients, to be honest. And sometimes I'll ask them like, listen, at some point, did something work even for a short period? And sometimes they'll be like, yeah, you know what? I did something and it helped for a bit, for like a month, and then it went right back. I'm like, that's hope, because that means that you could feel better, that there was something. A lot of times a good supplement works short term, but doesn't work long term. Like you'll get an effect, your body's starting to adjust, but then it goes back. And they get frustrated, they get disappointed. It's like, that's okay. That means you were close, but it wasn't a bullseye. And then there's always got to be some kind of psychosomatic component to it. I'm like, how do you feel about your pain? When did this start? Was there a trauma? Have you worked on that part? And I'll tell them, like, you need a team. That's just how it is now. You talk to one person. I try that person. They didn't help me. I tried that person. It didn't. Why don't you get all these people to work on you at the same time? What's a lot of money? It's like, well, we don't have to be, 24/7 around the clock service. You can meet with me every 3 months, have a consultation. You could do a phone consult. I can check in. I can call that other practitioner. We can kind of work together. You like going for a massage. You feel good when you do a massage. Let's get your massage therapist to start focusing on this area. And then you'll take magnesium beforehand to help you relax. And now you're feeling good 2% of the time in the day. Okay, now you went to a psychotherapist. You felt good that day, and then you started crying the next day. Okay, that sounds okay. But that day, you got a lot off your chest. Now we're starting to use pieces that they're like modules, bringing in something, taking it away, bringing in something else. And that's why I like the concept of like a quarterback. And I'll tell people, I'm like, I'm not here to fix all your problems, but I know enough specialists in different fields that I'm like, this person I trust. They've helped someone with something similar to what you're complaining of. Talk to them once. You're not going to them for 20 sessions over the next 6 months. You don't have to worry about that. We're taking off this idea of like tons of supplements. You're not taking supplements. Don't worry about it. You got supplements at home. Use what you have. Let's focus on diet. Let's focus on your sleep. Let's focus on whatever in the moment makes you feel good. And then we can kind of build momentum and be like, I'm starting to feel I'm better than I was a month ago. I'm like, when's the last time you were able to say that? I haven't felt good in 3 years. So we have progress. So there is a way to like take someone that's just like down in the dumps and burnt. And I'm like, there's room for improvement. We can fix something. You just have to be like, your shoulders are here. Just take them down. Like you're not around people that are going to take advantage of you. I feel like sometimes those are the people that are coming in. They're like, I've spent $50,000 on this, and this, and I'm right back at square one. I'm like, okay, well, it doesn't sound money's like not the solution here. Let's just like do homeschool, old school, natural therapies, things you can do. Go get a potato. You can do a lot of things with a potato.
Why potato?
I don't know. It feels like suck the poisons out of people, make food out of it, use the peels. I think that's good.
Okay.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Look at us, all so polite. You should do a podcast on politeness.
I would love to, because I've been accused of the opposite.
That's my point, because I can see the little stripe in you. As I see the banter here, it's hilarious.
Yeah, I'm going to cut it off right now.